Okay, so let me start by asking you a question. Just picture a map of Europe in your head. How many countries do you think share a land border with Spain? Go on, get a number in your mind.
If you said two, hey, you're in good company. That's what most people would say. I mean, you look at any standard map, and it's pretty obvious it's just France and Portugal. And, that seems to make perfect sense.
But that simple, logical answer, it's not the full story. And that's where things get really interesting. Because the reality of Spain's borders is actually one of the strangest geopolitical situations you'll find anywhere in the world.
So let's start our journey on that long border Spain shares with France up in the Pyrenees Mountains. You'd think a mountain range would make for a pretty clear-cut line, but nope. This border is home to some incredible, almost unbelievable quirks. First up, we've got the town of Levia. Now, this is a fully Spanish town, no question about it. But here's the catch. It's about 2 kilometers inside of France. It's totally surrounded by French territory, completely cut off from the rest of Spain. And there's actually a word for this kind of geographical oddity. It's called an enclave. Levia is just a classic example. It's like a little island of Spain floating in a sea of France. And it's all because of a treaty signed hundreds of years ago.
As weird as a whole town existing inside another country is, believe it or not, the French border has an even stranger story for us. We're going to head over to a tiny, uninhabited island in the Bidasoa River called Pheasant Island. So get this, the border ran smack dab through the middle of the island, and for the life of them, Spain and France just couldn't agree on who should get it. So what was their solution? They decided to share it, in probably the weirdest way possible. For 6 months of the year, it's Spanish. Then, like clockwork, the border literally shifts, and for the next 6 months, it belongs to France. And they've been doing this for over 350 years. All of this weirdness on the French border actually sets the stage perfectly for our first secret neighbor, a whole country tucked away in the Pyrenees right between Spain and France. And that is the sovereign nation of Andorra. Now, Andorra is a true microstate. I mean, its population is only about 80,000 people. And to give you some perspective on its size, the entire country is roughly half the size of New York City. It's a completely independent country, which officially makes it Spain's third land neighbor. Okay, so from the mountains up north, we're going to travel all the way down to the sunny southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula, because another big surprise is waiting for us there. So, meet neighbor number 4, the United Kingdom. Yeah, you heard that right. The famous Rock of Gibraltar, which is a British overseas territory, sits right at this super strategic southern point of Spain. And for centuries, it's been a real point of contention, because whoever controls Gibraltar basically controls the gateway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. All right, time for our last, and I gotta say, probably the most shocking reveal of them all. For this one, we have to cross the Straits of Gibraltar and look at the map from a completely different continent. This is a fact that just blows most people's minds. You've got the huge Mediterranean Sea separating Europe and Africa, right? And yet, Spain has this unique distinction. It is the only European country that has a physical land border with an African country. So how is this even possible? Well, it's because Spain has several territories right there on the North African coast. We're talking about the cities of Ceuta and Melilla, plus one very tiny rocky peninsula. And taken together, they create a land border with our 5th and final unexpected neighbor, Morocco. Now, speaking of that tiny little peninsula, I want you to just look at this number, 85 meters. That's it. That's about 278 feet. What in the world could that possibly be? That is the length of the border of a place called Peñón de Villas de la Gomera. See, this thing used to be an island, but over the centuries, a storm created a sand spit that connected it to the Moroccan coast. And that tiny little strip of sand, it created the shortest international land border on the entire planet. So let's do a final count, shall we? We started with the obvious 2, France and Portugal. But we've discovered that Spain also shares land borders with the tiny Principality of Andorra, the United Kingdom through Gibraltar, and the North African nation of Morocco. We went from 2 neighbors all the way to 5. And really, that brings us to the big takeaway here. The world is just packed with these hidden complexities, often buried in details we glance right over. So the next time you look at a map, it's worth asking yourself, if something as simple as a border can hide so many incredible stories, what other simple facts might be worth a second look?